We recently got a comment on one of our videos. Thank you, by the way. We love the comments. It was all about grind changes. It was about how do we open the espresso bar and make sure we're ready for the day? How do we monitor those shots throughout the day to make sure that they're going to taste great all day, depending on, doesn't matter which staff members on the machine, doesn't matter what the weather is. We can be ready for the day and we can nail our shots all day long. So follow along and I'll talk you through our process. Firstly, we've got to talk about the why. Why change our grind? There's two main reasons. There's flavor and there's consistency. Now, the flavor really comes from a number of things. It can be the beans you're using, the machine, the grinder, all these elements. And we're trying to make it simple for you. And we're trying to make it achievable for you to get a good tasting coffee. Now, let's assume that we've got a half decent machine and we've got some good coffee beans. And now we're just tweaking and we're just making sure that we're following a recipe, which I'll go into. But it's really about creating the best flavor that we can get. And if you're not grinding your coffee to the right size for the equipment you've got, for the beans you've got, you're just going to miss out on the opportunity to get the best flavor out of that coffee. Now, the second thing there is to get that flavor first thing in the morning, later in the afternoon, the next day. The new barista that walks in the door and wants to jump on the machine, they need to know what your recipe is and what the grind setting needs to be able to achieve that recipe. So consistency and flavor is why we're doing this. And if you're not chasing those two things, I don't know what you're doing here. So let's make sure that we're monitoring those things. And the best way to do that is with a recipe. Now, we've done videos on how to build recipes, so check them out. But for now, we just want to keep it really simple. Like I said, you've got all these moving parts to making coffee. Let's just assume that your coffee machine is going to give you the same amount of yield in your of your extraction into your cup. That's one part of the recipe we're going to keep the same. Now, we're also going to keep our dose the same. You might not be weighing, you might be filling up your handle. Well, let's assume that timed grinder gives you the same amount of coffee every single time. So our dose is sorted. The one thing that we do want to monitor is the time. Now, you might not have shot times on your machine. That's fine. Get your phone out. Get a little stop clock. Start timing your extractions from the moment you press that button to the moment the extraction stops. And that time is the easiest parameter for you to be monitoring every single shot all the time. Now, this is something that we call dialing in. The dialing in process is basically taking a moment to make sure that you are on recipe. Now, that recipe might be based on the coffee you're using. Your roaster might supply that. We definitely have recipes for all of our coffees. Our customers and our cafe partners that are commercially using, say, our Champion blend, they'll be doing 22.5 grams of dose, 45 grams of yield. That's a 1-to-2 ratio, and roughly 30 to 34 seconds. So that's a window because the elements around making coffee might change. And you might get a 30-second extraction, a 32 and a 33, and that's okay. What we don't want to get is outside of that recipe. So when I see a 36-second extraction, I know that my coffee is pouring too slowly. That means the grind is too fine and I need to go coarser. Now, how much coarser? Totally depends on your grinder and the whole setup. But vice versa, if I start to see 28 seconds, 20 seconds, heaven forbid, then I know I need to go finer, and that's going to slow down my extraction and get me back within my recipe that I want to. Now, if I roll this out across all of the staff, if I have a new staff member come in to do training, the simplest thing for me to do is train them on how to follow a recipe and do this dialing in process. So how do we start the day here in the Artistic Espresso Bar? We have a lengthy checklist. We make sure that the music's on, the chairs are out, and things are ready. But the big part of that is dialing in. And we follow a procedure here. We're going to put this as a downloadable link that you can go to and download so you can monitor this yourself. Basically, what this does is gets our staff and our baristas to get a record of the yield, the time, the dose at 6:30 when we're dialing in. We're going to do that again at 10 a.m. and we'll do it again at 1 p.m. This is not the only grind changes they will make. It is purely just accountability to make sure that we've definitely dialed in first thing in the morning, late morning, and then again in the afternoon. It's really just checking those parameters. It goes above and beyond times. It goes to yield and making sure that the machine is doing the right thing. This is a more extensive version of dialing in, and it's how we monitor how to get great extractions throughout the day. But the simple version of that is you will come in the morning. I would suggest running 1 shot into each group head. If you've got a 2 group or 3 group machine, just 1 shot. If you've done a good job with the cleaning process, watch the video on that one. You should only need to put 1 shot through each head. Now we're going to go back to the grinder and put our first shot on. One of the reasons that I do put a shot through each head does season the machine. Gets the oils through the basket, heats up the group heads, but it also heats up the grinder. And if you haven't completely emptied out the hopper and the chute through the night, there might be some residual grind in there. We want to get rid of that. So we've done that with all the heads. And then we're going back to group head number 1 and pulling an extraction on there. And we're going to time it. We're going to start the clock from the press of that button so that you can see if you pull a 23-second shot, we're going to go finer to get yourself more towards that 30 seconds. If you start pulling long shots, you'll be going coarser to get yourself back in your recipe. Now, the reason that we have to monitor this all the time is because the elements change. The things around us are constantly changing in cafes. Here in Australia, it can be a lot cooler in the morning and there's a lot more moisture in the air, and the beans will absorb that and they'll extract differently. Maybe they'll run a bit faster, so we need to go a bit finer. And as the day goes on, you'll tend to go finer, and because your shots will start to run faster. So by the time you get to the afternoon, you're in a much finer grind setting than you will be the next morning. So your afternoon grind setting will be very different to your morning. So you can't really come in the next morning and expect that it's going to be the same grind setting. The best cafes, the best baristas are the ones that are keeping an eye on this all the time. Ideally, you've got shot timers on your machine and you can have a quick reference of how your shots are sitting within recipe. So I'd ideally get your shot timers on the machine or pull your phone out and be monitoring those shot timers. So guys, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It is really important to monitor your grind. It's really important to set up for the day. Consistency, flavor. I guess I was trying to think about how to wrap this up. I was talking to my cameraman Ryan about, I guess, who this video is for. And it reminds me of the amount of coffee training sessions I've done with new baristas that are really kind of keen, but they don't realize how much of an impact this will have on their business or them as a barista, or how good their coffee can really taste and taste good every day. If you want to go from here to here on the taste of your coffee, changing your grind will have the biggest impact on that. That can be the difference between the 10 kilo account growing to be a 20 kilo account or a 20 to a 40. Flavor is a big part of the recipe of success that goes into running a successful cafe. It's a big part of the experience for the cafes. You can't get away with bad tasting coffee anymore. There's too many good cafes. And the simplest way to make sure your coffee tastes good is to monitor your grind, along with, yes, many other things. But grind setting is one of the biggest things that's going to have a huge impact on the flavor of your coffee, the consistency, no matter what staff, no matter what day of the week. If you dial in and you do it well, you'll have a huge impact on your coffee experience for your customers. So if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. If you've got more experience in this area and you want to share some more knowledge, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. If you like the video and you're into coffee, follow this channel, subscribe right now, and hit the like button, bell icon, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.